between all of them. At the beginning of the chapter, it talks about spina bifida. Spina bifida is a condition that occurs typically in infants, in newborns, and it's the incomplete fusion of the most distal portion of the spinal cord. And actually, the spine will actually protrude through the spinal cavity. I do have a slide of that in the presentation, so make sure that you take a look at it. It is something that can be treated and taken care of, and it is something that can be prevented. Pregnant women are always encouraged to take folic acid in order to help with the prevention of spina bifida. Hernia. Let me say one thing about a hernia. A hernia is not something that can be removed. I have had persons talk and say things in regard to having to have their hernia removed. Hernias cannot be removed. They can be repaired, because a hernia is the protrusion of an organ into another part. For example, we know that separating our thoracic cavity from our abdominal pelvic cavity is the diaphragm, but there's also that esophageal hiatus, because our esophagus has to go through there as well. Well, in cases where you strain too much or you use too much of your back in order to lift things, those organs that are at the superior portion of the abdominal pelvic cavity can literally get pushed up into that region. And if a portion of any of the organs, particularly the stomach, you might have a portion of the liver, but typically the liver won't do that, or maybe a portion of the large intestine, if they actually begin to protrude through that esophageal hiatus, then that is a hernia. And so that area has been expanded to allow for a part of an organ to go through. So the hernia would need to be repaired so that it's not as large. Okay, in addition to that, cleft lip and cleft palate, that's the incomplete fusion of the palate, which is the roof of the mouth. Remember, we have the anterior portion, which is the hard palate. We have the posterior portion, which is the soft palate. And also in this section, it talks about, let me go back one, polydactylism. Poly meaning many, polydactylism, extra digits, be them fingers or toes. Also, a cyst. A cyst is actually just an area that can be internal or external, that can be fluid filled. It's a fluid filled sac. Down syndrome is also referred to as trisomy 21, at the 21st pair of chromosomes. Instead of there being 2 chromosomes, there are 3. And there are very characteristic features that occur with persons with Down syndrome that are listed in your textbook. So please make sure you read through those. And then finally, if you flip to the next slide in the PowerPoint presentation, it shows you an example of radioplasia. You'll see a scan, an x-ray of one arm that has both the radius and the ulna, and one arm that the ulna or the radius is missing. The next frame shows you the infant with the spina bifida. Advancing the slide, you see polydactylism, where there's an extra digit at that last small finger. Pulmonary hypoplasia, the underdevelopment of the lung. You can see an umbilical hernia in the next slide in the presentation. Make sure you know the different types of hernias. There's umbilical, there's inguinal, and there's hiatal. And then the last slide, I believe, is showing you examples of cysts, epithelial cysts, so that one is as a result on the skin. There's one on the back of a hand, and then it also indicates and shows you a child with Down syndrome. Typically, persons with Down syndrome all look alike. They have same characteristic features, whether they are male, female, Caucasian, African American, Asian. They all typically have the same look about them. However, they are functional persons in our society, and they are able to do many things, even though they actually have that 3rd chromosome. But there are some characteristic features that they indicate in the textbook, and indicate in the textbook, such as smaller ears, flat nose, dwarfed appearance, broad, short, flat hands. But I'm looking for the section. Yes, if you look about halfway down in the first paragraph. And this is why I said something about them being very vital and functional persons in our society, because it indicates mental retardation occurs in Down syndrome to varying degrees. And that is correct. So just as we have different ends of the spectrum in various diseases, that's the same here. But they are able, persons with trisomy 21 or Down syndrome are not all mentally retarded to the point where they are incapable of holding jobs or positions in our society. Finally, make sure you read over the information in regard to cystic fibrosis. It's not in the PowerPoint presentation, but it is one that you should know because we brought it up at the beginning of the semester when we were identifying the differences between predisposing and immediate or excitatory diseases. So you do need to make sure that you refer to that. And I will also put up a video in regard to cystic fibrosis to give you more information about that. Well, having said that, like I said, I don't know if this is backwards or not. Please excuse Professor Walton. I don't know why he came in here bothering me. I was minding my business. And I will make sure that you have this available to you for the next week. Thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to take your quiz. And this quiz on the information on chapters 3 and 4 will be available next Thursday through Saturday. Have a wonderful day.